Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass Podcast. This for UFC 281. I'm Paul Shaughnessy, joined on the line by Cody Saftic, breaking down this pay-per-view card from Madison Square Garden. Housekeeping. How did last week go? I was going out to dinner for somebody's birthday with Pat and them. I got a little bit too... I bet too many underdogs. I mean, we liked underdogs last week, but I got my hand caught in the cookie jar a little bit. And on top of that, Viana... there was a plus 260 inside the distance, Cody. If I took that, my night is at least like evens. But I took the sub at plus 300. It's just like so small. I didn't think that she was going to win by knockout, and not in the first round like that by knockout. It was just one of those nights where it's just like I made some mistakes, but there's fights every single week, and we got a great card to break down here. So leave that in the past, move on forward. How you doing this week,
we
buddy?
knew last week. Yeah, we knew last week was going to be a tough card. It was just kind of a tough gathering altogether. Not the highest profile guys, and then. Yeah, like you said, there was a couple, not just underdogs winning, it's how they won. It's Marina Rodriguez getting completely knocked out. It's Jinyu Frey getting completely knocked out. It's, Derek Minner throwing a fight. Like, there's, expect the unexpected. So, tough situation all around, but too bad I was not in on that fix. Whatever. So, this is a way better card all around. Like you said, pay-per-view offering, solid fight, and good card to get these nice little spots in, I think.
Yeah, that was super sketch. Like, I guess we can talk about it really quickly here. It's just like, I don't know, like when you see that much market movement, and then the guy comes in and lays an absolute egg, and there was like massive money coming in on like round one TKO. Like, I know that they're doing an investigation on it. I know nothing. I know less than anybody else about it. And, like, there have been other situations where you've seen steam at the book where it was, like, primarily steamed up to, like, minus 400 for Shiolin there. There have been situations, like, you may remember Makwan took on Mike Grundy. And, like, right before the fight, there was, like, similar steam like that. And then it didn't really matter. Like Mike Grundy went up to, like, a minus 300 favorite. And I was sitting there with like a Makwan ticket going like, man, I guess if I wait until the last second, I could have got this. But Makwan ended up going out there and winning. So like these things do happen. You do see like weird steam. But then when the guy shows up, gets injured pretty much immediately, and then like he just kind of covers his face. I feel like Mark Smith just like let him take a little bit of punishment there on the ground. Like, Minner had nothing. Obviously, information got leaked out about it, and we'll find out how it all shakes out. But yeah, definitely a sketchy situation. I'm not gonna like say that it was a full-out fight fix or anything like that, but clearly information was made available to certain people and not others, which is a little bit weird. I will say.
Yeah, well, like you said, man, it has happened before with like crazy line shifts, but this line shift reminded me a whole lot of Taeyeon Banks, Leo Kuntz for sure, because it was like all the money moved late, and then that one ended up being the guy got approached. So we don't know the optics, and then at risk of getting a lawsuit, like we can't really jump in with greasy theories because I've got some greasy theories. But if you wanted to just go by like what are the facts that we do know, well, the facts that we do know are that what are the chances that okay. James Krause, excellent, coach. He's a UFC fighter. He's a good blossoming talent. And, eventually his career stalls out as a fighter, gets a little bit older, decides to retire. He's coaching a few guys in the gym, says that there's not a whole lot of money in coaching guys because you're getting a small percentage and it's not like everyone's a world champion. So by his own accord, things are going okay. He gets into the betting game, which is great, right? Has his own show, doing some good numbers. He's got a Discord. People sign up. He gives them some inside information. And right off the get-go, not that I give a shit, but just right off the get-go, people start bringing it up. They're like, well, isn't that a possible conflict of interest? Like he would have insider information. So what if he was to say, hey, Zach Cummings is a sprained ankle, go the other way? And it's like, oh, well, he doesn't bet his own guys. He doesn't bet those fights, but he's got inside information about other fights. Well, what other fights would he have inside information about? Presumably the best angle that he's got on anybody would be his own guys, right? Not the point. So he has his own little Discord. He has his own little show. He provides betting information. That's all well and cool. He got the Shea guy. I don't know much about him, but it's kind of like the guy that he does a show with. It's so much so that the UFC says, hey, guys, why don't you go on Fight Pass? Bring your show on Fight Pass, and you guys can do a gambler's perspective right on there. So the UFC is behind him. He's gambling on fights. He's coaching fighters in the UFC. And up until like a week ago, this is all perfectly legal, right? This is the concerning part to me. And again, I'm not bringing up anything that's not fact, right? This is the concerning part to me, is that they did an account takeover where instead of them just giving you hot picks, you give them your account information.
And they guarantee profit.
They would run the account for you, okay? So this is interesting for 2 points, right? Point number one, why this is interesting, is if you were to go into a book and say, here's $1 million, they would say, what's your information? What's your driver's license? What's your social security number? Where did this money come from? No book just takes $1 million bet for the hell of it. It doesn't happen. Now, what if you had access to 100 accounts? And these accounts are all over the place. They're in the Midwest. They're in the Northeast. They're in Canada. They're in Europe. They're in Alaska. They're all over the place. Now, individual money coming in, right, it's going to change the line, but it's not going to red flag it under one person. So in terms of spreading the money, if you were to hit an insider tip, that would be like, I would think that would be the way to do it for sure. Now, the only way this is going to work is if you had a guaranteed lock. Now, how are you going to get a guaranteed lock? Well, it would have to be somebody in your gym. Now, in Minner's case, Minner may or may not be at fault. Minner might know about it and went in and took a dive. Sure, then he's at fault. Minner may also be at fault the same way TJ Dillashaw is, whereas that he took the fight willingly, his knee's blown out, his coaching staff and his team know about it, but he's not going in with the intention of throwing the fight. He's going in the intention of fighting, and maybe I catch him in a quick little guillotine choke or something. And, you know, I'm a middling UFC career fighter. I get paid $25,000 a fight. I need 3 fights a year so that I can break even on my training camp expenses and pay my mortgage. I need to fight. So he goes in there compromising fights. So he didn't willingly throw the fight, just like TJ didn't willingly throw the fight. But the people around him that know that he's compromised, now no, Derek's not going to win this fight, and put the money. Now, was that James? Was that his guys? Was that a bunch of account takeovers, the guaranteed profit? I don't know. Not my place to say, because I'm not the investigator, right? They got their own investigation team. I'm sure they're smarter guys than I am, and I'm sure they'll come to the bottom line. So, like, I'm not speculating on that. I'm just saying that's what we do know. And to your point with the guaranteed profit, what happens is you get these guys' accounts, and now it's like, okay, you lost week 1, and you lose week 2, slight profit week 3, but you lose week 4. Now customer satisfaction is starting to get a little bit lower. It's like, oh, hey, man, I want to see these numbers get up. You go out there and you hit that big one. You went the other way. Who knows? Who knows what the situation is? I'm just saying it's like that's – and then greasy theory, not my theory, but greasy theory, that Shea guy said he had like what, a couple $1 million on David
on the Onama right? fight against Landwehr.
So David Onama, he's got a couple $1 million riding on him. He loses, and then instead of coming out and being like, "Dude, I got tanked on this," he comes and he starts backing out and being like, "Oh well, we bought the other side. We bought the regression on Landwehr." Trying to cover his tracks like I didn't get smoked for $2 million. But the greasy theory there is that we need to recoup from getting smoked on Onama. How can we recoup? Well, we need somebody to go out there and do the damn thing. And then I'm more of like an analytical numbers guy. And all I'm saying is the guy, what are the chances? What are the chances that it's Derek Minner out of that camp? Like, what are the chances? Like, the only guys that are possibly going to get speculated here on are on Zach Cummins, him. You're not going to risk one of your like upper echelon guys. Brandon Moreno is not going out there and I'm not even saying he willingly took a dive. I'm saying it's the same thing as TJ.
Mean, Minner was on a 2-fight losing streak entering that fight, so that made it 3 straight losses. I don't think he intentionally is going into there going, I'm going to lose, because we know in this sport, for the UFC, you lose 3 straight fights, you're pretty much good as gone. That's just the way it goes. Like, you lose, unless you're Sam Alvey and you've got, you know where the bodies are buried. Totally different situation. You can lose 8 fights in a row, and Dana's probably still considering him for a late notice replacement right now. But yeah, but like Minner, it seems a little bit weird. But I mean, the performance is exactly how I would throw a fight if I were to throw a fight. Not that I'm saying anybody threw a fight. That's for the legal investigation and all of that. All I will say is that the entire situation looked incredibly sketchy. And to bring up Bang versus Kuntz again, or Kuntz, sorry, my bad. Wasn't that like Bang was supposed to throw that fight, and that was like over in Asia, and like the line spiked like crazy, like an hour before, very similar to what happened here. But like Bang was actually supposed to lose that fight, and then he got like cold feet when he was in, and then he still spent jail time because he was involved in like a potential fight fix. So like poor guy went against the mob, and actually performed how he was supposed to perform. And still, even though he didn't actually throw the fight, still got in trouble for being involved in the whole thing altogether. Is that right?
Yeah, okay. So they approached Taeyong Bang. They said, we're going to throw a ton of money on you, and you're going to throw the fight to Leo Kuhn. So the line swings heavy, and now Taeyong Bang needs to throw the fight. But he says the UFC approaches him backstage in the dressing room, and they say, listen, we've been alerted to a fight fix because of the drastic shift in the line. So they were alerted to it, and they approached him. And then by his accord, when they approached him, they told him there's legal ramifications on this. He decided, I'm not throwing the fight. So he goes out and he fights Leo Kuntz anyways, and he ends up winning a greasy split decision. If you watch the fight, it could have been scored for Kuntz. But you should have paid off the judges, not Bang. But I will admit, he drops Kuntz in the fight, and then whereas a regular time he would have swarmed, he doesn't. He backs off like shit. I was supposed to throw this fight. Now I might knock this guy out. He doesn't fight normal. No. Funnily enough, Leo Kuntz only had 2 fights with the UFC. That one, which was speculated in a fight fix, which he still lost a split decision on, and Islam Makhachev. So Dems to break for poor Leo Kuntz.
That one went from plus 140 on Kuntz to minus 280, like in the middle of the night, because that fight card was in Asia. I mean, just silly stuff. What a wild world the world of MMA is.
We'll move on, but I'll just leave you with this one thing, very fictitious, and I won't even bring up Derek Minner because I feel like we're going to get in trouble enough for talking about it as it is. Let's talk about TJ Dillashaw. So TJ Dillashaw gets a positive test from USADA. They suspend him. He's on the shelf for years. Obviously, life's not as good as it could be as a UFC champion. Stripped of the title, lose to Henry Cejudo. Bad look, right? So now you're coming back. You've missed years of your prime. You've been sitting on the shelf. You think he teaches seminars and does endorsement deals and gets paid the kind of money he would from actually fighting, pay-per-view revenue, actually being active? Of course not. So I'm not saying times are tough for TJ Dillashaw, but maybe times are as good as it should be. He's getting a little bit older. His body's getting banged up. So even though he's going through the motions of getting ready for this fight, he knows deep down, I'm not ready. But I need the money. They're going to pay me $200,000, guaranteed flat rate, to go out there and fight Aljamain Sterling. I need the $200,000, so I'm going to take the fight. Now, if you're his team, you're his management company, and you're watching this guy practice every night, and it's like, dude, his shoulder is quite literally popping out of its socket by his own accord 5-6 times per practice every day. I got to get this thing reset all the time. So you would know that insider information. You would know he's compromised. Now, TJ might go out there and get beat the shit out of by Aljamain Sterling, and then what becomes of him? He's going to have to sit 6 months on the sidelines, 8 months on the sidelines, comes back a little bit older. He'll never be quite the same. If we took that $200,000 and we bet that $200,000 on Aljamain Sterling by TKO, it would pay $1.2 million. Now, $1.2 million would set us up pretty good, right? You don't got to worry about fighting 5 or 6 more times. Sit on the sidelines, get healthy. You got 1.2 million in the bag. That's what you want to try to go out on. So that's what you may at least cross your mind. Why not bet against myself? And why by TKO specifically? Because one, the line on Aljamain by TKO was big. But two, it's easier to, like you said, throw a fight by way of TKO because you can say you got injured. You can quite literally say, I can't see. Oh, the fight's been called off. Oh, I hurt my ankle. I hurt my knee. I broke my hand. You basically just say no mas. It's not a verbal tap. It's a TKO. If the doctor stops it, if the ref stops it, if your corner stops it, it's ruled a TKO. So if you go out there and you throw a kick and then you fall on your knee and, oh, my knee's bummed, then it's a TKO. That'd be the easy way to flop over. If you're TJ, same thing. It's like, if I'm sitting there on the ground, can't defend myself because I got one arm dislocated, is Aljamain going to try to choke me? Potentially, but more than likely, they're going to stop this thing and say, hey, he's compromised. He's taking too many shots. Stop it by TKO. And you don't even have to get that greasy and be like, oh, you bet this guy by TKO. No, just take the under 2.5. Just take the under 3.5. In this case, with the Minner fight, hammer that under 1.5. His knee's compromised. He can't fight 7.5 minutes. Not going to happen, right? But the reason why people are going to say fight fix is like, I just literally watched Nick Maximov fight 14 minutes on a blown out knee, and he did it. He did it because he had the desire to do it. Whereas other guys, it's like, oh no, I'm done, over. I wouldn't fault Brian Ortega. I wouldn't fault, Calvin Kattar. I wouldn't fault any of those like elite upper echelon guys. But you said it so yourself, 2-fight losing streak, mid in the division. Only win is over Charles Rosa. That really doesn't count for much. Oh, wow, TJ Laramie, I suppose, as well. But, he's released from the promotion, was a young kid. Is it the craziest thing you've ever heard? No. But maybe that's all tinfoil hat shit. So all we can do is talk about this card and hope that we're on the right side of the greasy knee blow. Jesus.
Yeah, everything that we just said just allegedly happened. Like, don't come and try to sue us, because we didn't really say whether or not. I mean, it looked like a potential fix. But we're not saying that it was a fix. Let's get into fights before we get in trouble. We got Israel Adesanya taking on Alex Poatan Pereira, minus 205. Izzy, plus 180 for Pereira. Cody, take it away.
Yeah, this is a spot where I probably lose money on going against the favorite in Izzy Adesanya, but I got to go the other way. I just think that if it's going to end up being a kickboxing match, there's a lot that I really do like. It's not so much as easy as, oh, these guys have fought before, because that's like the big narrative. Oh, Adesanya's fought Alex Pereira, he got knocked out, this and that. They've changed so much since then that to me it's kind of irrelevant. To me, what is still relevant though is like the mental aspect of it, because you've been seeing since he signed to the UFC, he's everything Israel Adesanya is always bringing up, and they're very continuous. Him and his team, they're very continuous on this notion of he doesn't deserve the title fight. He shouldn't get the next title fight. Let him fight all the challengers and then fight him. Not as if like you're avoiding the fight, but imagine you were the champion of all great champions and there was like that one blemish on your kickboxing record, and now that guy is there. Do you want to fight Jared Cannonier, or would you not want to fight that guy and avenge yourself? And he's a kickboxing badass, 2-weight world-class world champion over in Glory Kickboxing. Guy's the man. Why would you not want that fight? But it seemed like he was avoiding the fight, kind of. And then all of a sudden you get hot and ready. He wins his fight over Strickland. Everyone's pumped up. So immediately after he wins, Izzy accepts the fight. And then to me, since then, it's not like been backtracking, but they're bringing up a lot of the like, well, we don't think he deserves it. He doesn't deserve it. Bro, this is a good fight. This is the kind of fight people would love to see. If this was Pride and it was in Japan, who would care if the fight made sense? It's going to be a banger of a fight. Why not go with that, right? So in some way, I think Pereira is already inside of his head, and I think that's a big advantage. Now you look at the size of Pereira compared to the size of a lot of these other guys that Izzy has been fighting. Izzy's got that long matador kind of style, John Jones, right? He's long, he's lengthy, he knows exactly how to use that distance, and he's very quick-footed from the outside. He's not above having a boring fight and just sniping you from the outside, but a lot of these guys can't do anything about it. But again, when you look at them, Jared Cannonier's 6 feet tall. Sure, he used to fight at heavyweight, but it's not the biggest guy. I think his reach is... I think it's, I don't know, I want to say 2 inches shorter than Pereira, but he's like 5 inches shorter than Pereira, right? A guy like Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker's got like 6 inches less in the reach department than Alex Pereira. Robert Whittaker used to fight at 170 pounds. Calvin Gastelum used to fight at 170 pounds. These guys are not that big size, raw brute size of an Alex Pereira. So the narrative of maybe is he just going to take him down? Like, I don't know enough about his offensive wrestling or his offensive grappling from stand-up to take him down. Like, he's a big guy. You can lean up against the cage maybe, but even then, he's good in the clinch. He's going to be hitting you. So, I don't know. Israel Adesanya's been playing it safe, right? And to me, that's he doesn't want to engage Jared Cannonier in the pocket because Cannonier's got that big power. So you play it safe and you play to the outside, right? These other guys, you can play it safe and you can play to the outside. If you can't do that against Pereira, it's going to be a problem. Now, kickboxing's all the guy's ever done in his entire life. So in terms of cardio and him having to fight 5 rounds, again, I mean, if it's a stand-up fight with not a whole lot of grappling, he'll be able to stand there and throw shots all night. Not worried about that. His shots should have the bigger impact, the more meaning. And I think for the judge's cage side, Israel Adesanya staying to the outside, throwing a couple jabs and some low kicks. Pereira's landing those big thudding blows. Maybe they're going to inch towards him. So when you look at minus 210, when you look at 2-1 status on Izzy, I just feel like it's live underdog the other way in Alex Pereira.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add to that. I haven't bet it yet. I don't really feel like there's a real rush to do it because like this line, I mean, it opened at like months ago. It opened at like plus 170. It went down to like plus 140, and then it's back up in that range, 170, 180, pretty much market wide right now. So people are betting at Adesanya. I feel like I can probably wait until weigh-ins to add Pereira. But yeah, obviously you already went over their history between the two of them. Pereira's won both of their kickboxing matches. Pereira's been putting in time with Glover, in the gym. He's been putting in time with Turman, who we'll talk about later on the card. His grappling has definitely come along. Like we saw in the Bruno Silva fight that like he was taken down, but he wasn't a complete stiff in those positions. He knew how to kind of get back to his feet. And yeah, Israel Adesanya's never landed a takedown in the UFC. Now we've seen like marked, defensive improvements from Israel Adesanya, but we don't know that he has really any sort of offensive wrestling to speak of. And if he does take him down, like how long is he going to be able to hold him down? Like Pereira's been rolling around with Glover. Like I don't know if Izzy's just going to submit him. So yeah, I think it's a pretty clear, you don't have to like twist my arm too much to get me to bet an underdog. So Pereira will be the pick, and I'll have money on him come Saturday night as well.
One last thing that I'll throw on there real quick as well is that when you look at Izzy, is that he has a long body of work in these 5 rounds. But again, him versus Jared Cannonier, 116 landed, and people say that it was a boring fight because they're maybe significant strikes. They're not those big strikes, but the rest of his fights, him versus Whitaker, 5 rounds, 79. Him versus Marvin Vettori, 5 rounds, 96. Him versus Jan Blachowicz, 5 rounds, 78. Him versus Yoel Romero, 5 rounds, 48. When you look at Alex Pereira, that one fight with Bruno, because that's the fight that goes a few rounds and is actually a striking battle, he landed 108 significant strikes through 3 rounds, right? So again, I mean, I feel like whereas these other guys are waiting for that one hitter quitter on Izzy, this guy's not just, I have big power. He's one of the best, most accomplished kickboxers, Muay Thai fighters, well-rounded. I think he can just beat him in a straight-up chess match, kickboxing match, but it's having that power advantage that should allow him to prevail. And the mental edge of, if you're Izzy, do you not think to yourself, like, damn, dude, I fought this guy twice and he beat me both times. And the second time, I got stretchered out of the place. Like
and now I've got to fight him again, even though he knocked me out one of those 2 times in smaller gloves.
Yeah. So if I'm him, I'm saying the same thing. Like, bro, go fight some of these other middleweight challengers first, and beat 4 or 5 guys, and then. Then we'll talk down the road, because not you wouldn't fight him, but you're thinking of reasons for like, hopefully somebody else beats him and then I don't gotta fight him. But if he beats 3, 4 more guys, like it's inevitable. So kudos to the champion for taking it, but because he is the champion, it's not really kudos. It's like, this is what you're supposed to do. Some guy's your number 1 challenger and he comes out, and for you to be like, well, he's not the number 1 challenger, he's like the number 7th guy. It's like, cool, then fight the number 7th guy. Like, do you think Rocky was the number 1 guy when he fought Apollo Creed? No, he was like ranked 55. But his name was the Italian Stallion, which is marketable. So they were like, let's give it to him. And as you may or may not know, Paul Shaughnessy, the rest, history.
I mean, not a real situation, considering that it was a fictitious movie. But I get your point. How about we move on to the other championship fight? We got Zhang Weili taking on Carla Esparza, minus 335 for the challenger. The champion can be had for plus 275. Obviously, we're coming off of the heel, or, Carla, she got married. She was a big underdog going into the Rose fight, and literally nothing happened besides maybe a takedown for Esparza. Not really many strikes thrown. Very, very ugly, slow-paced fight. And I don't think that's going to be the case with Zhang Weili, who is a little tank, moves forward, throws hard shots. The grappling has been a work in progress. She's put in a lot of work down in Arizona with Henry Cejudo and his team. I mean, I think she's a rightful favorite here, and I think that the price is probably pretty close to accurate. I feel like as the week goes on, I'm kind of drawn to it. I want to bet Zhang Weili inside the distance. I kind of think of the the Jędrzejczyk fight when Esparza had the belt the first time. It's just like once she got pressured up against the cage, once Esparza wasn't able to get to the hips, she just kind of once she got pressured up against Cage, she was just stuck there, and she just ate shots until the ref steps in and saves her from her misery. That's kind of how I see it shaking out here. Maybe Esparza gets a takedown, maybe she gets 2, but Zhang Weili's already been 5 rounds with some of the division's elites. She hits really, really hard, and Carla's got to have like a perfect fight here. She's got to like mind her P's and Q's, get to the hips without taking too much damage. And she's like, Zhang Weili just needs like one big flurry to land, and that would be all she wrote. So I probably will skip the money line at minus 335. Like, I think it's probably like an 75-80% outcome type of thing, but inside the distance for Zhang Weili is like a pick-em price right now. So that's where my money's going to end up in the co-main event. What about you?
Yeah, same thing. Not only am I going inside the distance, but more specifically, I think I like the TKO prop. I don't necessarily see her submitting Carla Esparza as much as, like you said, just an accumulation of damage. Either she stops her standing with a barrage of strikes or just eventually close up one of the eyes, swell her face up. Carla, when she does get those takedown stuff and is forced to exchange, she tends to wear a lot of swelling, and I think it's visible for the judges. But again, Zhang Weili going to another level. Her pace, her accuracy, the power on her strikes. For 115 pounds, I mean, I would like to see who hits harder than Zhang Weili because she's an absolute dynamo. But again, it's getting better. Now, what's the one hole in her game? Potentially. Well, I guess it would be the wrestling. Strong argument she beat Rose Namajunas in that first counter. But, she lost maybe some of the striking exchanges, and then Rose mixed in 2 very timely takedowns. So when she came back against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, that was her first camp in Arizona with Harry Cejudo and company, and my God, I mean, did she ever look strong, powerful, wrestling on a whole other level? Took down Joanna 3 times, basically at will, overpowered her, and then ends up knocking her out. One of the most decorated, most coveted strikers of all time, but more specifically at women's strawweight, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And again, just that pace, that volume, that pressure. The first time they threw down, it was like Joanna could take that damage, but her face is swollen. She's got like an egg growing out of the top of her head with that hematoma. It was like some nasty stuff. Carla's not going to take that same amount of punishment. Zhang Weili just gets through to her. And with Carla, it's like she's kill or be killed on her wrestling. She's the second best wrestler in the division. When she fought Tatiana Suarez, she got taken down 9 times, got 0. Since then, she can go out there and take down Alexa Grasso, Michelle Waterson, Marina Rodriguez, Yao Zhounan, Rose Namajunas. You can muster up some takedowns on them. It's the in-between. That fight with Rose her last time out, terrible fight. It's the fact that nothing happens on the feet, and then you mix in maybe a takedown or 2. Versus Zhang Weili, even if you mix in that takedown or 2, it's like she still battered you standing, right? Rose didn't do anything. Rose beat Rose. That's ultimately what happened, and handed over the title to Esparza, which is cool because of like the journey that Esparza's been in. Wins the inaugural belt off the Ultimate Fighter, beats Rose, and then since then has just been like a journeywoman of the division. But that wrestling's been key. That wrestling's been effective. And against Zhang Weili, I don't see it. So I know that Joanna fight that you're referring to is so long ago at this point, but I actually agree with you 100%. That was that moment where it was like, oh shit, I can't actually take her down. Well, what do I got standing? And it's like, not enough. It was enough against Claudia Gadelha because Claudia Gadelha just flat gassed out. It was enough against, a couple of these opponents here and there because she could just touch them up a few times. She throws that lazy jab. She really gets after you with this takedown. But against Zhang Weili, she's running into a different animal altogether. So I do agree with the money line, but even though it's a little thick, I think you want to try to improve it. 25 minutes is a long time to be in there with her if you can't get her to the ground. And because I don't think Esparza is going to do that, I got that TKO prop.
I will say, Cody, as someone who just got burned by the Polyana Vienna, I should have taken the inside the distance when the price was like negligible.
Esparza by KO?
No. What I'm saying is take the inside the distance. It's like there's minus 110s out there. The best I see is plus 120 on the KO/TKO. Do I think the KO/TKO is way, way, way more likely? Yes. But I don't want you to feel like I did when I could have taken a plus 260, but I took a plus 300. And, it would change the entire night. So, that's why I would stick to the inside the distance. Who knows? Crazy things happen in MMA. I don't think that she's going to submit Carla Esparza. Don't get me wrong. But for the minuscule difference in the prices, I think inside the distance is a lot safer. Moving on down, we've got Dustin Poirier taking on Michael Chandler in most people's pick for fight of the night. I don't know how you could, if you're not a fan of this fight, you don't like MMA, because this should be absolute. I mean, pretty much who has been he hasn't exactly won every single fight, but it's like, who has been a bigger fan favorite since entering the UFC? 4 fights. He's 2-2 in those fights, but Chandler has been an absolute dog out there, just going to absolute war. The Gaethje fight, I can't believe nobody got finished there. Obviously, Charles really, really hurt in round 1, and Charles came back and finished him in round 2. Dan Hooker just absolutely flatlined him. Tony, oh my God, and Tony Ferguson's at Harvard University. Congratulations to that. I don't know how he's at the business school there, which is, Fight Pass should definitely be following Tony Ferguson around Harvard campus. That's all I can say about that. But Poirier minus 225, Chandler plus 190. Poirier, he's a busy man these days. He's he's got the hot sauce. Saw Pat Mayo. Pat Mayo had the hot sauce here at the office and had no idea that it was Dustin Poirier's hot sauce. He grabbed it just at the grocery store. So
you're kidding, really?
No, I was just like, where'd you get this? I'm like, did you order it off of Amazon? And he's just like, man, he's like, I found it at Sobeys. And I was just like, wow.
That's a good distribution deal.
International hot sauce, man. He's probably making good money off of that at this point. But yeah, basically, I'm drawn to Chandler here strictly because I expect chaos in this fight. I expect both guys to eat massive shots, and I see a plus 190 price tag on a fight that I could really see going both ways. Both of them are. Poirier obviously has been knocked out before, but that durability, early in his career when he got knocked out against Conor McGregor, it's like people thought, or the Michael Johnson fight, people thought, oh, maybe this guy doesn't have a chin. It's like, he has a chin. Trust me. He's been through some wars. He's excellent. But I don't know. Crazy fight. Crazy results. Give me the plus 190 price tag here. I think both of these guys are just going to meet in the middle. It's going to be a dust ball, and hopefully Chandler comes out victorious. What's your take here?
Yeah, listen, you can do worse than Michael Chandler for plus money plays. The guy's going to fight for your dollar to the death if need be. He throws absolute vicious intent, and he's a well-rounded, good fighter. Former champion, very athletic, solid wrestling, durable when need be. Wrestling's off the hinge, and yeah, again, he's just got that right hand. So there's some guys when you're just take a flyer on an underdog, it's like, well, does he have a legitimate chance? It's like Michael Chandler versus any guy in the division on any given night has a chance. It's just like, is he going to pull it together? And so, yeah, I'm not going to fault you whatsoever. I am going to go the other side, though, and take Dustin Poirier. I think exactly like you're saying. They're going to meet the center of the cage. They're going to throw down. Each guy's are going to have their moments. Chandler's going to hit Poirier. Poirier's going to take it. Poirier's going to hit Chandler. And all of a sudden, over time, Chandler's going to be thinking to himself, why can't I see? Why are my eyes watering up? And that's because Poirier dipping his gloves in old Louisiana hot sauce before the fight. That long term will just disintegrate your vision. You can't see, you can't fight, Paul. And I feel like it's probably going to be a somewhere late second round, third round TKO stoppage for Dustin Poirier. All jokes aside, though, Chandler's kill or be killed. He's willing to go out on his shield and throw down. I just feel like he has more of the durability issues. You've seen him in Bellator get absolutely starched. Speaking of guys that have had bad luck injuries, he's had his ankle seized up in a fight with Brett Primus before. Cost a lot of people a lot of money. He fought an undersized Patricio Freite at 145 and got beat up. Got knocked out in the first round. Pretty vicious knockout as well. He's willing to go out there and throw down, no doubt about it. But if he doesn't have his own way, things start to falter ever so slightly. In my personal opinion, the Charles Oliveira fight, he takes not the Oliveira fight, but the Justin Gaethje fight, he takes a career-altering beating in that fight, especially at his age. He's not the same young guy that's fighting Eddie Alvarez back in the day taking a beating. He's Asian, takes that beating. And then the Tony Ferguson fight is an epic knockout. It's a killer knockout you're going to see on highlight reels for years to come. He lost that first round. He didn't look particularly good. And then he jungle kicked him in the second round and put him away. To me, Dustin Poirier, if he shows up in shape, then he's got a little better cardio. His boxing combinations are just good. He'll find the mark. He'll touch him up with his jab. He'll keep him at bay. He'll hit him and he'll hurt him. Once he hurts him, Chandler's going to throw recklessly. He's got a chance of catching Poirier, but I feel like Poirier will put it together. Now, he's getting a little bit older. He's a rich man. He made money from the Conor fights. He made money from pay-per-views. He's making money from the hot sauce. Like, why would he want it still? All fair points. Maybe his body's starting to regress a little bit. Again, I completely understand. But when I hear Michael Thomas Brown say, this guy's very highly motivated, in the gym every day, looks better now than he ever has, believes in him, I have that belief in Michael Thomas Brown that they're sending a good product to get the job done. So I think you're getting excellent plus money on Chandler. I don't fault you in the slightest bit. I just got a feeling that Poirier is going to take him out. Now, I don't love that price on Poirier, but I find it hard to believe that Poirier will beat him up the same way Gaethje did. You know, like, you don't take two of those beatings back to back. I feel like Dustin puts him away, and if he can put him away, we're good. And let's not, make any mistake about Poirier versus Charles Oliveira. He had Charles right where he wanted him, right? He was putting a beating on him. And I don't know if he tired. I don't know if those nasty knees to the body zapped his gas tank. But fighting Charles is one of those things, like, you better get it done quick because the guy comes on the later the fight goes. Well, I guess not against Makhachev, but generally speaking, right? Yeah, so he looked good and then just faded off. Chandler, meanwhile, I didn't think he looked great, and then he caught some highlight reel KO. If they throw down in the center of the cage, I feel like Poirier still got a little more to offer. So I will take Dustin Poirier, but again, to sweeten up that money line, I'm going to take the Poirier by TKO.
That's fair. I'm not going to fight you. I think there's like plus 120s out on that. That's how I'd go about it. I think this is just going to be a wild fight. Don't love the over-unders are like minus 1.5 rounds. It could, it's a 50-50 proposition whether this goes 7.5 minutes, and I think that's about right, to be perfectly honest. All right, moving on. We've got Chris Gutierrez taking on Frankie the Answer Edgar. Minus 225 Gutierrez, plus 190 for Frankie Edgar. Didn't think that we'd ever be in this spot, Cody. Interesting,
no.
To say the very least. Frankie Edgar, the legend, fighting close to home. He's obviously from New Jersey. And a sizable underdog against Gutierrez. I mean, Frankie Edgar, in the Pedro Munoz fight, he took a lot of leg kicks there, and that's what Gutierrez is going to do. Obviously, the speed isn't quite there. Frankie's got to go out and shoot for takedowns pretty much immediately. The durability is not quite what it used to be anymore. But in fairness to Frankie, he's taking on some of the division's elite. Corey Sandhagen, Marlon Chito Vera, Chan Sung Jung. It's just like Max Holloway. It's like he's fighting the who's who of the division. It's a little startling seeing him this big of an underdog against Gutierrez. But Gutierrez coming off of a career best performance last time out against Dana Bakary. Everyone kind of thought this guy was a decision machine. He'll just kick your legs. Well, he's got some extra tricks in the bag. Spinning back fist to elbows for the finish in round 2. I kind of feel like, Frankie's mobility is a little bit tarnished as he's gotten a little bit older. And I think those legs are going to get chewed up from distance. Wouldn't be surprised if this goes to decision. Frankie holds in tough, but I'll ever so slightly lean towards Gutierrez. I just can't put money on Frankie Edgar in the year 2022. That's where I fall on this. But I'll pick Gutierrez. I don't think I'm going to be betting this fight. What about you?
I'm going to take the plus money on Frankie Edgar. Again, this is a card that I do agree with a lot of the favorites, but there's good plus money on Frankie Edgar to be had, and I'm willing to give it a shot. MMA is a very fickle animal, right? I mean, one point you're on top of the mountain, you're the greatest, everyone wants your autograph. The next, you're considered washed up, and people want you to hang up their gloves. In Frankie's case, people are considering him washed up and want him to hang his gloves. But keep in mind, his last fight against Marlon Vera, 3 takedowns, outstrikes him 94-88. So 94 significant strikes landed, 3 takedowns, winning the fight, all 3 judges' scorecards, about to beat Marlon Vera, which would be considered an astronomical big win, very relevant in this division, and damn, he gets caught by like the nastiest front kick next to Michael Chandler smoking Tony Ferguson. And just like that, it's just like, yeah, man, he don't got it anymore. How could you be that competitive with Marlon Chito Vera, be a whisker away from beating him, and then be not competitive anymore? Frankie can still wrestle. The guy gets takedowns in basically all of his fights. In terms of that movement again. Yeah, is it classic Frankie? No, but his ability to rack up numbers is still there. You've seen him get against Marlon Vera. Fight ended into the third round. He'd already racked up 94 significant strikes landed. Him versus Pedro Munoz. Again, there was a 5-rounder, but 135 still put up. Frankie's not what he used to be, but again, as someone that can maybe box a little bit, throw 2-3 punches at a time, throw up a little bit of volume, and then try to mix in those takedowns, I think he would be considered still serviceable. Now, here's the niche with Chris Gutierrez. I think he's talented. I think he's got nasty leg kicks. I think he's got dynamic striking, like you said. Power underrated. On paper, doesn't really knock out a whole lot of guys other than Vince Morales. He stops him on leg kicks, and then that last fight with Dana Baccarel. Previously to that, not a whole lot of these big fight-ending moves, but it's his 37% takedown defense that's concerning to me. He gives up takedowns in basically every single one of his fights. He got taken down by Dana Baccarel. He got taken down by Felipe Corrales. He got taken down by Andre Ewell. He got taken down twice by Cody Durden. Completely out-grappled by Cody Durden 2 years ago. Two years ago, back take, can't get up, no answer, giving up takedowns to Cody Durden, who's a flyweight, who took the fight on a week's notice and had a full-time job. And now 2 years later, I know he's getting better. You can see it in him. His movement's better. His ability to get back up. No doubt he's getting better. I just mean there's a good chance here that Frankie can do exactly what he did against Yair Rodriguez, which is expose the fact that this kid's got a 37% takedown defense, right? He gets taken down in all of his fights. And when Frankie gets takedowns, he does work on top, man. 5 minutes of top control against Marlon Vera in his last fight. And we're worried that he can't take down Chris Gutierrez. So, if Frankie's the favorite, he's got red flags all over the place. Don't bet Frankie Edgar. But at this kind of dog money, totally interested. Totally interested. So, for the time being, lock me in for a Frankie Edgar underdog shot.
He's 41 years old, Cody. That's usually a thing that you would say.
And you would normally give me shit and be like, man, you're an ageist. This guy still got it. Frankie's one of those ageless wonders of the world. He's like a Yoel Romero. He's like a Jose Aldo. Ooh, I actually really not all that old. Jose is not that old. But these guys that, for whatever reason, have just had vintage performances through the year. Frankie won a world title at 155. He challenged for a world title at 145. And now he's down at 135 pounds. And he's almost like jobber status. It's like, oh, damn. It's like, well, who are these jobbers that he's fighting?
It's the top of the division.
Marlon Vera. It's like, damn, okay, so top 5 guy in the division. Oh, Corey Sandhagen. Okay, so top 3 guy in the division. Chang Sun Jung, Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez, Pedro Munoz. These guys are all the best of the best. Now, when you look at Chris Gutierrez, it's like Dana Baccarel, Felipe Corrales, Andre Ewell, Cody Durden. Shit, dog. Most of these guys don't got jobs with the company anymore. In fact, Morales is coming off a loss. Freitas is cut. Durden's coming off a loss. Andre Ewell's cut. None of them have had any recent success. None of them are top 15. None of them are even knocking at the door of top 15. And he's going to go from that
to be don't disrespect.
It's possible. Yeah.
Don't disrespect Cody Durden like that. He's on a 2-fight winning streak.
Yeah, my bad. I misspoke. He smoked out Carlos Mota the last time out. That
and
was
he
actually
beat GP buys before
better.
That.
Yeah, I don't put a whole lot of stock in that, but I'll give him his credit on the Carlos Mota fight for sure. Kid took the fight on a week's notice. I get it. He was still a good fighter. Yeah, I'll put some respect on Cody Durden's name. But you're right. Cody Durden, 2-fight winning streak at 125 pounds. And for the record, he fought JP buys and a guy that took the fight on a week's notice.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that there would be a big talent jump. I would be I would be arguing points for Chris Gutierrez to win if you were giving me plus 185 for Chris Gutierrez. Swapped, yeah, of course. Yeah. It's like, yeah, maybe he just dances to the outside and he's got too much mobility and he kicks the leg. But I'll tell you one thing, one of Frankie's best takedowns always has been, I'm hoping always will be because he'll need to come Saturday, is catches kicks. He catches the kick and he drives left hand forward, he picks up the leg, drives forward, gets the takedown. If he ends up on top of you, He's got nice little elbows, nice little short top, smothering top game. And again, at 41 years old, it's like, oh, most guys are definitely going to regress. The regular human beings of the world are going to regress. Frankie Edgar's an animal, man. He is an absolute animal. Work ethic off the charts. Guys that train with him in the room tell you how good he is. It's that Father Time is actually the greatest champion of all times. And Father Time is kind of getting the better of him lately. So keep in mind, if that front kick doesn't KO him against Chito Vera, we're not even having this discussion. We're talking about him being
a minus 300
Frankie.
favorite.
Yeah. It's just like, MMA is a crazy sport, so it goes the other way. I just see the live money on Frankie. The only one thing that
God damn it,
I am
Cody.
concerned about, and we can move on. I know we'll move on though, is that he's announced his retirement, correct? He said this is his last fight.
You know you love those narratives.
No,
Guys
but
who
you know
say that
this.
they're going to
Guys that say
retire
this never
never
win.
win. They
Yeah.
never.
I
You
know
never go out.
that's my one concern.
You never go out
That's my
the
one concern.
door. You know.
Yeah.
You never. They have to drag you out the door. You never go out there nicely. Like not in this sport.
No.
It always ends badly. That's usually how these things shake out. I don't know. I mean, for the purposes of, I'll maintain my Gutierrez pick, but that may change because Cody talked a little bit of sense, and I love betting underdogs. So Frankie, I mean, all you would have to really do is get those takedowns, hold position for 2 rounds, and then just don't get deaded in round 3. Like it's not. If it was a 5-round fight, I would be a little bit more worried. But the path is most definitely there for Frankie Edgar. So don't be shocked if I turn up on Saturday morning with a Frankie Edgar ticket. Moving on down, we've got Dan Hooker taking on Claudio Puelles. Hooker is a minus 140 favorite. Claudio Puelles, the leg lock specialist, can be had for plus 120. What's your take here, buddy?
So this is another case where like I see all the time people are like, Hooker is done. He is done. It's like done to what extent? Done fighting for top 5 type opponents? Yeah. Done in terms of he's going to make a serious run at the title? Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. Done in terms of his career? Like, oh, I don't know about that. Again, you got to look at the names, and he's won one of his last 5 fights. Those opponents that he's lost to include Dustin Poirier, former champion, Michael Chandler, former title challenger, former Bellator champion, Islam Makhachev, current champion, and Arnold Allen, who very might get the next title shot or is within a fight or 2 from getting the next title shot. So that's as elite possibly gets. The one win over Nasrat Haqparast in the mix. I'm not a huge Nasrat guy, but it's still a relevant win, and he looked really good against him. So I can't take too much away from him. I just don't think he's elite, and they've kind of thrown him into a lot of those situations. So has he been showing his best results? Is he in the best shape he's ever been? Nah, probably not. His legendary durability is compromised. Barbosa was the first guy, Edson the first guy to really test it, rip him to the body, stop him, but that wasn't a headshot KO. Chandler rips off his head with that dynamite explosive power, which is why I don't fault you for taking that plus money on it, because he lands that baby on you. I mean, it's a nuclear right across the lips. You're done. And since then, it seems like durability could be an issue. Now, Arnold Allen, not really known for his power, his finishing abilities, just straight up, mobs him up, corrals him, and just bombs him with shots. I mean, it's like an endless combination and knocks him out. That is going to be a winning strategy against Hooker if he has these durability issues. But Claudio Puelles isn't that guy. He's honestly failed to impress me every step of the way. Like, if you go back to his fight with Felipe Silva, I lost a ton of money on that fight. I was at your house, actually. And Felipe Silva murders him for the first 2 rounds. Drops him, hurts him with everything he lands on him. And in the 3rd round, he rolls out a bum-ass knee bar and Buddy taps. It was like devastating. But he was getting killed. The next win is Anderson Silva's buddy, that Marcos Mariano. What was he doing in the UFC?
One of the biggest frauds outside of like CM.
One of the biggest frauds of all time. So he squeaks by in a fight he looks terrible in, and then he beats Anderson's buddy, and then he gets Jordan Levitt, who the fight's awful, right? It's actually quite close, but he lands 20 significant strikes over the course of 15 minutes, but he muscles up a couple bump takedowns against Levitt. That's something that won't work here, but it's something that worked in there. Again, failing to unimpress. His fight with Chris Grutzmacher looked, I don't know what was up with Grutzmacher, but just if you rewatch the fight, especially if you know other Grutzmacher fights, like his pace is gone, his cardio is gone, he was coming off a bit of a layoff. It's a bad performance against a low-level guy. And his last time out against Clay Guida, that would be considered his best win. But Clay, one of these guys that just has seen better days. So he's put together a 5-fight winning streak. And I mean, come on, I can't hold that against him. I can't take that away from him. It's solid. It's impressive. And beyond all that, the kid's young, man. The kid's very young, and he's clearly making improvements. To me, the issue is, where is he actually good? Is he a striker? It's like, no. He does not seem to have no big power. He walks into a lot of shots. His head's up in the air. Defensively, he is not sound, and he has low volume. It's like, okay, can he wrestle? Not really. He's been getting takedowns, but bro, it's super low level. He's not physically all that strong. He'll get these little trip type takedowns on you, but that's about it. His grappling's solid. If he ends up on top of you, you can do something. But all of that is rendered moot against someone like Dan Hooker, who I think is going to butcher him standing and has the takedown defense to keep this fight standing, stay to the outside, use that volume. If you do get clipped by something, Puelles doesn't have that same power that a Michael Chandler does. Doesn't have that same power that some of the best guys in the world have. So if you take a shot from Puelles, that's fine. He's not a 100 significant strikes type guy. He's a mix in a few takedowns and cling on to you type guy. And I think Hooker can still beat that type of guy. So again, I'll take Dan Hooker. I would love to take Hooker by TKO, but one thing about this Puelles kid is going back to that Felipe Silva fight, he can take a shot, man. He can take a shot, and he's one of these guys that's willing to go completely unconscious to get the job done. So to me, Hooker doesn't stop him. He just puts a beating on him and wins the fight by decision. So I will take Dan Hooker, but again, being that he's on this run, even though it's elite guys, he's on a bad run, and Puelles is in a positive run. It's like, yeah, eventually I'm going to get caught by this type of matchup. I think Hooker's still got a little something left in the tank, which is enough to beat Puelles. So sign me up for the hangman.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And actually, I don't think we're in any sort of rush to add Hooker because, I mean, this line opened up at like minus 200 and people have been betting Puelles. Like, that's where
they think Hooker's done, which is fair, but
which is fair. He's been taking on, like some of the best of the best. Like, don't get me wrong. If this goes to the ground, Claudio Puelles grabs a hold of Hooker's leg, like you're in, your butt is fully puckered at that point. But on the feet, this shouldn't even be remotely competitive, to be perfectly honest. And Hooker's been through some wars. Maybe his durability is a little bit compromised, but I haven't seen too much from Claudio Puelles' stand-up game to think of that as much of a threat. It's strictly like disengage, stay at range, and you should absolutely dominate. So, yeah, Hooker for me as well. Moving on down, we've got Renato Moicano taking on Brad Riddell. Moicano, a minus 120 favorite. Riddell is the ever so slight underdog at plus 100. Who you got?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a dog or pass, but you're not really getting any dog money on either guy. Brad Riddell, I would love to pick because I think him at his best wins this fight. He's the better striker. He's got good, solid takedown defense, and I think he just stays at the outside, puts combinations together, counter punches for the most part, but I do think he gets the job done. But again, when you look at body language and confidence and all this and that, Brad don't seem the same to me whatsoever. Like, this is a guy that was supposed to be, he's Israel Adesanya's kickboxing coach, and he's one of the next great lightweight contenders, and he's on a solid run. But again, you got to look at like the results, and the results in his case is the Alex De Silva fight. He gets taken down a couple times, gets controlled in the cage, wins the fight. Not a great performance. That Drew Dober fight, he got lit up by Drew Dober. He was in all sorts of trouble. Rallies back, beats Dober. Concerning results, but still good, solid victories. And then the last two, the Rafael Fiziev fight, you don't want to hold anything against him, but this is elite striker versus elite striker. And he looked super gun shy. Like, he didn't want to sit down on any of his punches. He kept trying to counter punch or just like touch and go and get out of there. Fiziev was marching him backwards. Everything was landing a lot more impactful. And eventually he ends up getting knocked out by Fiziev. But not like, maybe it's a confidence thing. You just didn't really want to like sit in there and like exchange with him. And then when Jalen Turner's last time out, it was much of the same. Turner's huge for the weight class and definitely does hit, but like he got dropped immediately into that fight, tried to backpedal, and then eventually gets caught in that guillotine choke and subbed unconscious. So my only issue is that he was supposed to be this wrestler, this counter wrestler, like sprawl and brawl. He'll be able to stuff a few takedowns and then use this world-class striking. But now you're seeing him against other strikers, Drew Dober, Rafael Fiziev, his last time against Jalen Turner, and like he's getting caught and he's getting hurt and he's losing a lot of these exchanges. His volume is starting to regress. He's not landing tons of shots because he's kind of like overthinking it and not trying to make any mistakes. Now against Renato Moicano, that might be enough, right? Go back to that sprawl and brawl tactic. Stuff his takedowns, stay to the outside, outwork him. But Moicano's got a good way of getting that right hand to go through. He's got decent volume. He just got killed by Rafael dos Anjos his last time out, but showed a ton of heart and was continuously coming forward and was landing some decent shots at time. He's long, he's rangy. I think a lot of opportunities to find the target. It's just like I don't have a ton of confidence either way. The official pick for me is going to be Brad Riddell by decision. I just don't love it.
Yeah, official pick for me is going to be Moicano. My struggle with Riddell is that when he gets into those exchanges, like the Drew Dober fight, is that he leans on his wrestling. It's like if things get a little bit shaky for him, he leans on his wrestling. It's like I think that's a recipe for disaster. That being said, Drew Dober is a much better striker than Renato Moicano, or at least a more powerful striker. I've been kind of outside of the RDA fight. I've been kind of impressed by like the recent improvements from Moicano, like the Herbert fight. I mean, Herbert long striker, and he was just able to take him down constantly, like basically whenever he wanted to. Alexander Hernandez able to take him down 2 times. He obviously, his chin isn't exactly great, but like I haven't seen crazy power from Brad Riddell. Sure, he could knock him out, but it's he seems like more of a technique striker than a power striker to me. Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very close fight. It's lined correctly. Am I going to end up with money on it? Probably not, unless there's like a crazy Moicano by sub prop that gets released. Moicano, I'm going to ever so slightly lean to in this spot. We got Dominick Reyes taking on Ryan Superman Spann. Reyes is a minus 210 favorite. Spann can be had for plus 180. Cody, your thoughts?
I know this one's probably a bad call, but I'm Spann underdogging, I think, on Ryan Spann. To me it feels like a Spann underdog play because it's not like I have any real great reason other than like pure narrative and speculation. But yeah, I just think on a card that I again agree with a lot of the favorites. I feel like there's maybe some live underdog status here for Ryan Spann. Looking at Dominick Reyes. Yeah, listen, is he talented? Sure, but he was always green. Like he got a late start to MMA. He's a former collegiate football player who kind of middled away for a bit, and then now you're thrust into the UFC limelight. It's like he had a quick rise. Those wins, keep in mind, right? I don't want to say like every win in the UFC is huge. You want it at the highest level. It's great. And when you beat a named opponent, it's great. And then that leads to this falsehood that it's like you're beating all the best guys. You are one of the best guys. But it's where were those guys at when you beat them? Because in order to get a name, you have to fight for a long time. If you fight for a long time, you may not be the same guy anymore. Looking at his run, it's filled with good names. Jared Cannonier. Oh, Jared Cannonier is not a 205er. He's a middleweight. 20-pound drop he made from that. Okay, fine. Ottman St. Preux was not Ottman St. Preux at the time. He's a washed-up former title challenger at the end of his road. Volkan Oezdemir is a former title challenger who's been on a terrible run. Chris Weidman is a former middleweight whose body is completely shattered and broken down. So I can't take anything away from the wins. You're beating guys at the highest level. But again, that gets you into this title fight with Jon Jones. And I actually took Dominick Reyes in the Jon Jones fight. And watching it, it's like, dude, he's ultra competitive. Did he win? Did he not win? I felt better about it than a lot of people did. A lot of people were like, we got straight robbed. It's like, I don't know. Jones may have won that fight. But it was like him fighting an unmotivated Jones. That result in itself is going to leapfrog him to being one of the best 205ers in the world. But one has to wonder if it wasn't just another case of Jon Jones toying around with his food. He has a tendency to do that. He did it with Anthony Smith. He did it with Ottman St. Preux. He does it in a lot of these fights. He just goes through the motions. It's part of being so dominant, and sometimes you don't show up. And in this case, yeah, he just kind of went through the motions. So the two subsequent fights is what we really have to key in on. And in those cases, Jan Blachowicz puts a beating on him, right? Every time Jan would land, it was impactful. He didn't like it. He didn't like getting hit. Jones wasn't sitting down on shots. Jones generally doesn't sit down on shots. Jan did, and Jan beat him up pretty good. Stops him by TKO. That was a big underdog win for Jan Blachowicz, who captured the light heavyweight title. Nobody saw it coming. Very few people saw it coming. And also, very few people saw Jan, a career decision guy for the most part, go out there and finish him in, which he did. Finished him clean. So then Reyes comes back versus Yuri. And like if you do have durability issues, or if you do have confidence issues, or if you're not totally sure of your striking acumen, Yuri's just a bad guy to be in there with, man. Because he's gonna hit you. When he hits you, it's gonna hurt. And in this case, I can't fault him. He tried to fight him valiantly, but he got swarmed up and he got beat up on. When I think about Ryan Spann, I feel like he is a good technical, rangy kickboxer. He has big power. You've seen him hurt and stun a lot of guys many times before. And if Reyes approaches him with this kind of game plan of we're going to sit there and we're going to kickbox, I feel like Spann's going to have a lot of moments. If he has a durability issue, if he has a confidence issue, if he has any type of issue, Spann may be able to capitalize and take advantage. He's been fighting actively. He's still young. He's still improving. I think he's live here. And for Reyes, he's had a few injuries. You think of him as a super prospect because it was just a few years ago. This guy was like the next big thing, right? If he would have beaten Jon Jones, he was like, oh, finally someone, took over Jon Jones's throne. And this guy's that next great guy. He's 32 years old. He's already a little bit banged up. He's been battling injuries and he hasn't fought a year and a half. Those to me are all reasons for why you could go out there and lose a fight. And if you're going to say he's 2-1 favorite, Yeah, to me, I got to take a sniff the other way. So I did take Ryan Spann, but again, it's not. I don't feel as good about this one as maybe some underdog play, other ones. But I just know if I have Dominick Reyes on a ticket, it's like that he's going to be the one that's shit in the apple pie. And I'm going to sit and I'm going to think to myself, man, why was I so big on Reyes? And all of these things that we just talked about are going to come up where it's like, yeah, you know what? Geez, he does have the layoff. Geez, he has lost his last 3 fights, the last 2 by knockout against guys that were perhaps, well, Year is a huge power puncher. Maybe not Jan. They hurt him. Is he confident? He's 32 years old. There's ring rust. These are all problems to have. And Ryan Spann, because the casual fan doesn't know who he is. He hasn't fought John Jones. He hasn't taken the former GOAT, to the brink. He hasn't fought these top guys. So they have no interest in betting you. They're going to go the other way. And I think because of that, we might be able to find some value by taking Spann.
That's terrifying to me, to be perfectly honest.
But just hit a pass. I mean, dog or pass. That's you don't have to bet every dog. You can just hit that pass, baby.
Well, there's other dogs that I'm going to scatter on. I'm going to pick Dominick Reyes here. I just think if this fight does get extended, which a lot of Spann fights do not, Reyes should absolutely lap him in volume. Like Spann, we're not that far removed from Spann edging out a split decision victory over Sam Alvey.
Yeah,
people forget that. Like, this guy's a great hammer, not exactly a great nail. It's like he goes out there, he finishes guys early, or he gets finished early. When he's went to decision, it's pretty uninspiring stuff against Sam Alvey there. It's been a tough run for Dominick Reyes, but it is literally against,
the best. Yeah.
The GOAT of 205. The guy who took the belt after that GOAT left the division, and then the current champion of 205 pounds. So it's like he's had a pretty tough run. Spann hasn't fought anybody of that caliber. Johnny Walker knocked this guy out in the first round. Like, I don't think the line is too inaccurate, to be perfectly honest. Like, if this fight gets a little bit extended, Reyes should be able to outvolume him. Just keep the fight upright, should have an advantage on the feed. Like, where I get concerned about him is if he's grappling, if he's going down to the mat with Spann, who has some pretty slick submission skills. I'm going to pick Reyes on this program. Moving on, we got Erin Blanchfield, a minus 400 favorite. She takes on Molly Meatball McCann, who can be had for plus 300. Cody, you know me. I've bet it doesn't make any sense, and maybe I should just avoid this situation altogether. But I've bet Meatball Molly has been a massive favorite in her last 2 fights, and I've taken the massive dog shot on them. Now we actually have an opponent that, in theory, can take her down, control her, do all of that type of stuff, and I'm like, what am I missing? The shot seems to be to take Meatball Molly here. Do I think she's going to have another spinning elbow finish? Probably not, but she's done it in her last 2 fights, so who am I to say? Blanchfield was met with a little bit of resistance last time out against J.J. Aldrich. Wasn't able to get the wrestling going. J.J. Aldrich actually was credited with 2 takedowns in that spot. Maybe it was just a bad week. Maybe it was just a bad day. I don't know. But she didn't have her best stuff. She did find the standing guillotine choke in that spot. But Meatball Molly's, she's went through the grinder, and now she's one of the most popular female fighters in the UFC right now. From the Barstool, being signed by Barstool, it's really raised her stock. I imagine every single meatball not named Molly, all the Barstool guys, all the casual bettors are going to have cash on Molly McCann. But it's if Blanchfield isn't getting takedowns and getting this to the mat immediately, I could see this being a lot more competitive than the line suggests. I'm leaning towards McCann strictly because of the number. What's your take here, buddy?
Yeah, well, listen, I was calling Erin Blanchimov after her first couple fights in the UFC. Like, this girl fights like a Russian, man. She's just relentless with her pressure and her grappling and her takedowns. And she's only 23 years old, has already had a very promising career, has already defeated a bunch of solid competition on the regional scene. She's going to be a factor for years to come, and she's definitely going to get a title shot, or she'll get very close to the title at some point. She's 23, and she's already this skilled. Her fight with Sarah Alpar in her debut, Alpar was a wrestler. Alpar can wrestle, dominates her. 3 takedowns, smashes her with those 3 takedowns, easy money. She fights Miranda Maverick, one of the most physical girls in the division, one of the best wrestlers in the division. Maybe not one of the best wrestlers in the division, but very physical, good grappler. 7 takedowns, dominated. So yeah, dude, totally troublesome that she couldn't take down JJ Aldrich. 0 for 4 and was taken down twice. Lost the first round to JJ. Was not looking great in the second round, but pulled it through and then looked a lot better in the third. I got to chalk that up to learning experience, growing pains. JJ Aldrich is actually very solid and came in excellent shape. And to me, what was a good takeaway for Blanchfield is that you know that she can grapple, you know that she can wrestle, you know that she's got good cardio, but she hasn't really had to show you a whole lot of those other skills. Against JJ, she could not take her down. That was problematic. Now you have to strike with JJ, who's a fine striker, a former training partner or a current training partner of Rose Namajunas, longtime training partner of hers, right? And Blanchfield made the adjustment of, yo, I can't take her down, YOLO mode, and she just fought her like a Mexican. Forward pressure, through hands, did an excellent job of just trying to make it a gritty fight, stand up, and did win. I thought she won, did what she needed to do. So to me, it was good that she was able to make those adjustments, especially as a young fighter. So I do like what I see out of Blanchfield, but she's got to go back to her wrestling for this one because McCann is wild standing. She's erratic. She'll throw easily over a couple hundred significant strikes, land 100 of them. And like you said, back-to-back wins with that spinning knockout by spinning elbow. Yeah, it's nasty. It's unpredictable. It could change the course of the fight at any time. But I got to go back to her fight with Laura Procopio, whereas like when you're not willing to stand in front of her, you take her down at will. Her last 2 losses, Laura Procopio, Taylor Santos, she got taken down a combined 12 times, held down for the vast majority of it. Her offensive wrestling, she likes to mix it in fights. All of Molly McCann's wins, for the most part, she makes in a couple takedowns or 2. But if you've got that wrestling advantage over her and you want to use it, the takedown defense isn't quite there. The get-up game isn't quite there. The technique isn't quite there. These strong, solid grapplers will take advantage. Laura Procopio is a BJJ black belt, but otherwise not a good talent. I believe she's released from the promotion, truth be told, but has that BJJ black belt. So when the fight got down to the ground, you saw a big, gap in skill. Same thing with Taylor Santos, gap in skill. Even Diana Belbita took her down once upon a time. And overall, Molly McCann shows off a 47% takedown defense in the UFC. So numbers alone suggest that Blanchfield is going to take her down. Mm-hmm. If Blanchfield takes her down, she's got excellent top control. You're not getting up. If she does that for 2 of the 3 rounds, Molly's really going to have to land some spinning back elbow in the 3rd round because otherwise she's a volume puncher, not a power puncher. And I don't think she's going to be able to fight her way 0-2 out of the hole. So she's got to keep it competitive early, and I don't know that she's going to do that. So I got Blanchfield, but I'm going to try to chase the price and go by Blanchfield by decision.
Fair enough. All right, we got Andre Petroski taking on Wellington Turman. -200 Petroski, +170 Turman. Who do you got?
Yeah, this one scares me just because I don't like Petroski. I'm not particularly interested in running and cashing him, especially at heavy money line status. But it's also like I don't know if I want to take Wellington Turman this time around. Petroski, there's nothing about him that like I shouldn't like. The dude is absolutely shredded, brick shit house, ripped up, a solid wrestling, wrestled collegiately, solid BJJ skills, BJJ black belt, competes at in tournaments, fairly good level. And then of course his last time out against Nick Maximov, who's a BJJ black belt, Diaz brother guy, former collegiate wrestler as well. He just completely sleeps him. So like the guy's athletic, he's powerful, he's got skills everywhere. He is a problem. But to me, his gas tank is like super suspect, man. Carries a lot of muscle, as I talked about. And if you can cause him, this is again the thing on him. If you watch the tape, he's completely gassed out. So he's got bad cardio. But if you look at the results, he finishes these guys in the 3rd round a whole lot. It's almost like, what's it called? A conundrum. Like it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. It's like him versus Michael Gilmore. Gilmore's a bum. Should have taken him out in 1 round. Mm-hmm. Instead, he gasses. He looks awful.
I had Petroski round 1, and I was just like, this is like the biggest layup. Like, what are you doing?
Dude, he fought awful. On the Ultimate Fighter previous to that, he gassed himself out and loses. Now he's fighting Gilmore in the tough finale, essentially, and he gasses, doesn't look good, but does get that third round finish. Against Hugh Zanong, he had like 6 or 7 submission attempts. Like he had front headlocks, front chokes, guillotine chokes on this guy all day long, who didn't really look like he knew what the hell he was doing in there, by the way. And then still into the third round, he's gassed, but he puts him away. So yeah, part of me is like, does he have a good gas tank? He's getting third round finishes. The other part of me is like, nah, dude, trust me. He looks like he's gonna fall over. A brisk wind is gonna topple him over. Eventually, they're gonna max him up. They're gonna match him up accordingly. Nick Maximov, not that guy. Nick Maximov runs into there and gets caught with that quick choke. Well, sure, we know the guy's explosive and dangerous for that first round, but I think if you extend him, despite the third round finishes, I think if you extend him, you could have a lot of success with him. Wellington Turman, meanwhile, again, there's not like there's anything super like he doesn't have no X factor to him. There's no real big intangible. It's not like he's a great striker, great grappler, great wrestler. But one thing is he is young. He's fought at the better level of talent. He is like the main training partner for Glover Teixeira. And again, eventually he's going to be able to catch some of these lower level opponents. Petroski might being one of them. His losses for the most part are to decent enough guys. Bruno Silva, Carl Roberson, I guess Andrew Sanchez to a much lesser degree, but his being at 185 his last time against Misha Churkinov, he got taken down in the first round. He got controlled. He ends up taking Misha's back. It was a slick back take. His jiu-jitsu looked pretty solid in that first round. It appeared he was starting to fatigue, though, pretty hard. Second round, he's gassed. He falls to the ground, and he snatches up a real quick armbar. Now, Misha, of course, high-level BJJ black belt, but even him, like Turman, was able to find that arm and keep with it. I don't know that his cardio is great, but if he shores that up, he's going to be dangerous enough. Like he comes from that shoot to box background where he's down and march forward and throw hands, but his BJJ is probably where his game's best at. He just needs Glover to really hone him in. Now, he's a training partner of Alex Pereira on the card as well. One would have to imagine he's coming into this fight in good shape. And the thing with Petroski is like Wellington Turman conceivably is a better striker. So Petroski's going to take him down. Okay, he probably does. It's not like this guy's a fish out of water off his back. He's got good grappling. If he gasses, they're both going to be gassed.
Mm-hmm.
But Turman's live in all of those scenarios. And if Turman shows up in shape, yeah, I'm really going to feel good about it. But that will remain to be seen until the fight starts, of course. But yeah, again, I'm going to take a slight flyer here over on Wellington Turman.
Yeah, same here, man. That's what I was kind of thinking. I actually watched Wellington Turman's interview today, like his media day interview. And he was talking about how like he's only been with Glover for a year. And he's like, I've been making massive improvements. He's like, I was on a losing streak before I did that. The English was actually really good considering he's only been here for a year as well. But yeah, he was just saying that like the world of difference, like actually training with a legend like that has taught him so much about his game. And like, yeah, I stare at this line and the biggest thing that jumps out to me, and I was on Petroski against Maximov as a plus 300 underdog. And that's why, like, it always comes down to numbers in this game for me. And, like, that's how I make my bets. It's just, like, talk about recency bias. This guy was plus 300 against a one-dimensional, grappler. And then all of a sudden, he gets that first-round finish against Nick Maximov, who we've kind of realized is like, one-dimensional, not entirely skilled, doesn't have a stand-up game. Obviously, getting the submission was a little bit surprising for him. But then all of a sudden, now he's 66% to win against a guy who can probably match him on the ground, likely has at least more technical striking. Petroski can definitely crack, throws wild haymakers. Yeah, I think it's a very, very clear dogger pass situation here with Wellington Turman. Yeah. So yeah, we are aligned on that dog shot. I got a lot of dogs this week too. Watch, it's going to be another run of favorites like last week, where the books pretty much got everything absolutely right from a money line perspective. Moving on down, we got Ottman Azaitar taking on Matt, the steamroller Frevola. Azaitar is a minus 120 favorite. Frevola can be had for plus 100. What's in the bag, Ottman? What you got here, Cody?
Yeah, what is in the bag, I think, is the $1 million question. And then the other $1 million question being like, what's up with this guy? Where's he been at? You know what I mean?
He's just rich.
Like
he doesn't need to fight.
No, but it was pretty crazy. Like he makes his debut, he steamrolls Team Pekelin, which is like, oh yeah, well that was set up for him to do so. But it's like he's got legitimate power. That's one thing you'll see on the tape is he'll sit down on his punches and a fast, speedy right hand. If he hits you, it's gonna do a copious amount of damage, smokes him. So it's like okay, let's give him Kama worthy. Kama's extremely talented, but does lack the ability to take a punch. And Ottman, same thing. It's a tailor-made opponent. He blows right through him. So now he's just been sitting on the sidelines doing his own thing. But it's interesting that they bring him back 2 year long layoff, 2 year plus long layoff. And again, it's like they give him a guy with durability issues. It's like the UFC does do Ottman Azaitar favors. If you can't take a punch, you seemingly get into a contract agreement with to fight Ottman Azaitar. So I don't know if he's like, I don't know. I'm not saying that he's giving anybody money. I just mean because he doesn't have to fight, it's not like you can give him a top challenger. It's not like you can give him a wrestler. It's not like you can give him something that's, be considered bad for him. He'll only take the best fight for him. And when he signs on the dotted line, you kind of do see that similar trend in opponents. So yeah, the amount of power that Ottman Azaitar has, I think that he is live for the KO and that he could be able to hit Frevola. Frevola kind of does have a history with it. Lost to Marco Polo Reyes once upon a time in the UFC. That's a bad look. But just like completely flatline a minute in, doesn't have the greatest chin. His fight with Lando Venata, it's a draw. Dropped twice early in that fight, like just chin probably not all that good. Trains with Aljamain Sterling, trains with Merab Dvalishvili, known for that all-American grind, known for great cardio, solid grappling skills, a willingness to do it. But if you can't take the hit, well, it's going to be kind of problematic. That fight with Terrence McKinney, 7 seconds. Now we know Terrence McKinney is dynamite. We know the guy can hit, but I think it's all just part of a trend, right? You're getting knocked out by Marco Polo Reyes. Okay, fair. You're getting dropped by Lando Venata. You get knocked out in 7 seconds by Terrence McKinney. You're liable in all these fights to get clipped with something and get knocked out. And I know his last time out, he was doing the knocking out against Geraldo Valdez. What was concerning to me in that fight is he dropped Valdez 4 times. He was all over Valdez, and yet he wasn't using his wrestling. It's like he's willing to engage. He's willing to strike. And that might be fun, but it'll also be to his detriment. So I feel like Ottman Azaitar is going to snipe him with something. And you got Tapology open?
I do.
Yeah, so normally it's like the fighter pictures. It's like it stays the same throughout their career. Someone uploaded it in like 2006. It's still there. But like he changed his specifically to a picture of what I like to refer to as Brokeback Matt. And I don't know why he went with the cowboy look. Like why would you make that your profile picture for an MMA fighter? So I can't get behind Brokeback Matt here. I think Ottman Azaitar is going to, pull the bag on him and knock him out sometime in the first or second round.
Yeah, I'm like really torn on this fight, to be perfectly honest. I'm more drawn to the under 1.5 rounds, which like you can get some plus money on that. I mean, Azaitar hits super, super hard. I'm not entirely sure like what he can do as a grappler. Obviously, Frevola has some, wrestling upside in this spot. If he gets him to the mat, I know that Azaitar puts in some time with like Team Habib and all of those guys, but it's like, how good is this guy? Off of his back if he gets taken down. I'm not entirely too sure. More drawn towards, yeah. I'll side with you with Azaitar getting the finish, but I'm more drawn towards the under here. I think Frevola could take him down, submit him, make it look easy. More likely, Ottman lands a big bomb in the first 7.5 minutes. So that is my take. All right, we got Karolina Kowalkiewicz taking on Silvana Gomez Juarez, minus 120 Kowalkiewicz, plus 100 for Gomez Juarez. And this one's like interestingly, like the under 2.5 rounds is like plus 110. Like they are wise to Silvana Gomez Juarez at this point that like, her fights, she hits hard. She finishes people. And they're absolutely wild. But if she ends up in your guard, she's probably getting armbarred. Like that's pretty much just how her entire UFC career has gone. Submission defense, massive, massive liability, but this girl can crack, and she can crack early. Kowalkiewicz obviously coming in, she had a horrible, horrible run. Everyone thought that she was probably retired, and then shows up and has one hell of a performance against Felice Herrig last time out. Revived her career, and here she is in this spot. I think she's kind of getting disrespected. I think she's a much more complete fighter. As long as who has like really absolutely throttled her on the feet? Jessica Andrade, who's like one of the most noted power punchers in this division's history. Outside of that, I mean, the chin's always kind of held up. The heart's always held up for Karolina. I think she's getting disrespected in this spot. Karolina Kowalkiewicz at like a pick'em price seems more than fair to me. A little bit long in the tooth, of course, but Gomez Juarez just seems like a one-trick pony. It's like if she doesn't get an absolute like crazy overhand right that lands, or a very, very big clubbing shot, I don't know what else she's got in the bag. Like, I don't even know what she looks like in like a full like 15 minutes. Like, she's a straw weight finisher, and we know how that goes. So Karolina for me. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna chalk this up to a dog or pass. Again, probably looking to avoid it, but I'm gonna go with a slight lean towards Silvana Juarez, actually, the other way. No disrespect to Karolina, like she's been a former title challenger. She's fought all the best girls of the division, but yeah, to me, she just doesn't appear to be the same. I know she looked better last time against Felice Herrig. Felice Herrig was going to retire after the fight regardless, and we all know that how that plays out, and didn't look all the same. So Karolina got the win over there, but she's got 18% takedown accuracy, right? She's got one takedown scored in the UFC in the last 5 years. So if she's not going to look to grapple whatsoever, then it's like you're going to have a straight up striking battle with Silvana Gomez Juarez. The issue with having a straight up striking battle is so far, no one's really had any success in doing that. Like her 3 fights in the UFC, Lupita Godinez took her down 5 times in the first round because she did not want to stand and strike with her. It was a good move on her part. Her fight with Vanessa Demopoulos, Vanessa Demopoulos got a hell of a chin on her, bro. Like, if there's one thing about Vanessa Demopoulos, she will come forward, pressure you, and can take one hell of a shot. But like, she drops her, made the mistake of jumping on top, and then got armbarred. And then the last time against Nali Yang, it was almost just like a matter of time, right? You see how much power this girl's got, but like you're saying, you know that she's got a lot of that early power, but how does it translate? Well, if you just want to strike with her and you're not going to try to take her down, then I don't know. I feel confident enough that she's going to be able to throw power and keep that pace for at least a couple of rounds. In Karolina's case, I don't think she's got some big TKO ability. She doesn't have some big finishing power. She's got volume. She's got solid volume. But in throwing some of that volume, she's there to get hit. She oftentimes does get hit. Andrade, of course. Andrade's got ungodly power. She melts her. But beyond that, you've seen her get outstruck in a few spots. I could totally see her winning this fight. In fact, she's at American Top Team, one of the best gyms in the world, training with some of the best girls in the world. She probably comes out here and probably wins this fight. I just can't get behind it. Like, I don't know why. If she's not going to shoot a takedown, she's going to stand up the whole time. I got a bad feeling. Like, she's not as physical as Silvana, and if she's not, she loses these striking exchanges. She might get TKO'd for no other reason than she's starting to get a little bit older herself. But that being said, Silvana's 37. This is a greasy fight. It's a greasy fight no matter what side you look at. And so for that reason, kind of looking to avoid it. But if my man Pat Mayo is in the studio with you, Prize Pick Pat would be telling you, take a flyer on the underdog. And that's a cheap way out because this is a bookie always wins type fight. The favorite's minus 115. The underdog's minus 105. There's juice to the house on both sides. But technically speaking, one of them is the underdog. It's Silvana Gomez Juarez. And that's where I ever so slightly did decide to go.
All right, we got Sungwoo Choi taking on Mike Trizano. Choi, a minus 160 favorite. Trizano can be at for plus 140. Who you got?
Yeah, so Trizano is another, repetitive theme that we're seeing from a lot of these guys on the card. It's like he is talented. No doubt he has talent. It's like you got to judge him based on what you're seeing recently, and he looks washed, man. He just looks disinterested. His striking's not all that good. His striking defense is not all that good. He's getting hit in there. He's not letting his hands go. He used to be a volume guy with a lot of frontward pressure. But I just feel like you're seeing him get beat to the punch a lot more. He's not very confident. He's not very comfortable. And the results are speaking for themselves, right? His fight with Grant Dawson, he gets backed up. He gets beat up. That's fair. His fight with Ludovic Klein, close fight. When you rewatch that fight, strong argument that Ludovic Klein should have won the fight. He got 4 takedowns, right? Like, how did he not win that fight? It's not a great performance for Trizano. But again, you're seeing him not particularly comfortable in there. Him versus Hakeem Dawodu. Now, I bet him pretty good in the Dawodu fight. Dawodu's a low volume guy. If you look at all of his fights, he's a low volume. other than his fight with Trizano, which Trizano literally just allowed him to tee off at range, didn't pressure him, didn't throw back, didn't do a whole lot, got doubled up, just seemed disinterested. And then his last fight against Lucas Almeida, he doesn't want to engage him. He's backing up, doesn't look comfortable, does land a knockdown like midway through the first round, and then even there doesn't pounce on him, doesn't take advantage, ends up getting knocked down twice himself. He's taking damage. He's slowing down. He's not reacting the same way. I'm not want to say he's done because he's young and he's obviously got skill and can go on and do other stuff. It just appears that he's not like going to get over the hump of one of these top 25 type guys. Now, Sugmo Choi's case, much of the same. Like, is he a mid-level type guy? Yeah. It's just like I took the more positive takeaways from what you see from him. He's very long, rangy for this weight class, solid enough Muay Thai, good kicks up the middle, good teep to the body, will work the head, body, legs, very versatile like that, and does fight a long game. His wins, they look good, man. Other than Suman Mokhtarian, of course. But a win over Yusuf Zalal looked good in that fight. A win over Julian Erosa, where he knocked Erosa out in a minute 30. That aged really good because Erosa's on a solid run. But the losses, the Bruce Leroy fight, he hurt him in the first round. He dropped him in the first round, scored a knockdown, won the first, was winning the second. One bad mistake. Bruce Leroy takes the back rear naked chokes. You can't take away from the skill that you saw in that fight. Solid striking, solid composure. One bad mistake. That's okay. And then Josh Kulabau was last time out. I don't really know what to tell you there. Kulabau does have a lot of power. I don't like Josh Kulabau. I really don't. But if there's one thing about him, similar to who just beat the shit out of Chase Hooper, Steve Garcia. Yeah, Steve Garcia is pretty one-dimensional, but like, bro, he does got legitimate power in his hands. That's one thing you can't take away from him. Kulabau has that power, and as a result, like Detroit didn't look good, man. He was walking into shots. He got dropped twice. I thought he did a pretty good job of like working his way back into the fight. Maybe there was an argument. I thought there was an argument he won. I had money on him, so it was a biased argument, but I thought he did a good job of working his way back into it, but they decided to give a split decision the other way. So again, you can see the skills in motion. You can see that there's something there. He's just making either a slight mistake or coming out on the wrong end of a slight split decision. It's just kind of bad luck type stuff. Trizano, he's not reacting the same. He's not moving the same. He's not fighting the same. He's not comfortable the same way. And in this fight, he's got two options. Option A, move forward and be that same pressure guy. If he does, Choi's long, he's rangy. This is the big cage. He's going to just pick him off and throw up the volume. If he decides to not pressure him, Choi's long, he's rangy. He'll stay to the outside and just continuously use that work rate, use that left hand, use that kick up the middle. So in both scenarios, I feel like Choi probably does pull away. And normally I would say, let's juice it up, baby, and take that Choi by decision more specifically. But seeing Trizano get knocked out his last time out like that, I'm worried, man. He got hit by Almeida and he did not react well. And by comparison, when he drops Almeida springs back up and he's back on him. When he gets dropped, it's like you can tell that there's some serious sting taken out of him. So I don't really think he's the same guy he used to be. He's maybe potentially on the back nine and minus 165 range for Sungwoo Choi. Really not all that bad. So let me just go ahead and just take that straight money line.
Poor guy. He's on the back nine and he's what?
He's not old, man. He's not old at all, but
30 years old. Washed.
Yeah, the body works in crazy ways. Some guys like Frankie Edgar can get KO'd and come back and like still fight at an elite level. And listen, it's not necessarily his body's not reacting as much as your brain at some point starts being like, I don't like to get. Here's a good story for you. Me and Shoney Carter had to drive one time from like the Calgary airport down to Lethbridge, Alberta. It was like a 3-hour drive, right? It was a 4-hour drive. So we're driving down, and he's got like 100 fights, dude. This is a guy that fought Pat Miletich in the UFC back in the day. Was like one of the pioneers of the sport, has been there, done that. And then in recent years has been getting his ass kicked by good guys. He should have retired a long time ago. He's got way too many knockout losses. He told the paramedic after the fight that he had 49 concussions. He's done. When we're sitting in this car ride, the guy in the back, my boy Rod, was like, how do you know when it's over? Like, how do you know when it's like, it's done? It's done. And then he's like, when it starts to hurt. And it didn't really make sense at the time because it's like, dog, you're a pro fighter. Of course it hurts. But when you're a young man, when these guys are young men, they go through the rigors of training. They go through the fighting. They go through the sparring. They go through the sacrifice. They go through all that, and they can still keep on the other side. They can still keep competitive. But at some point, you go in there, and it's like, I don't want to get hit anymore. I'm tired of hurting. My hip hurts. I'm not sleeping well. Now all of a sudden it's like you're going to regress. You're not that same young, hungry lion. If you want to be a top guy in the UFC, talk to any top guy. Talk to any top guy, top 15 guy, top 25 guy in the UFC. The vast majority will tell you they think they could be the best in the world. They could be the world champion. Why? Because if you did not think you could be the best in the world, you wouldn't be doing this shit. Fighting is not for the regular person, right? You have to be an optimist. You have to be an optimistic person. I think I can win. I think I can clip him. I think I can pull the upset. Because if you're a realistic person, you're not fighting. And if you're a pessimistic person, you are not fighting, right? You have to have that inner self-belief. You have to have it. So a guy like Trezano, yeah, young, but it's like, what are the results like? Dude, you robbed Ludovic Klein, right? That without that win, that puts him on a 4-fight losing streak. The results are now getting worse and worse. Does that motivate you to get to the gym? Are you motivated now to get in there?
I mean, you don't know this guy.
And get beat up some more? No, I don't know.
Maybe it does.
This is all completely... It could, but I also feel like at some point it's like, man, what do you still... You remember KJ Noons?
I mean, here's the thing. Is like, I think this is a very, very close fight. And like, I remember KJ Noons, yes. But at the end of the day, it's just like... I mean, Seungwoo Choi got submitted in round 2 and got outstruck on the numbers by Alex Caceres. It's like, good veteran, but like not exactly a world beater by any stretch of the imagination. My problem with like backing Choi at minus 160 here is the volume. Outside of Suman Mokhtarian, it's like you never bet a Mokhtarian, as we've said many times on this program. I mean, look, he's cool about 46 significant strikes. Arosa was a first-round finish, obviously, as people do against Arosa. Against Zalal, 41-23. It's just like they're pretty low-volume fights. I wouldn't be shocked if this goes to a decision. Both guys land about 70 significant strikes. Maybe Trezano mixes in a takedown, and it's a split decision. Like... I don't know. I'll ever so slightly lean towards Trezano. I wish he had more of a wrestling game than he does. He's a Tiger Schulman guy, and they're mostly kickboxers out at that gym. So yeah, I'll take Trezano for the purposes of the show. KJ Noons, what do you have to say about him?
No, it's just another guy. He beat Nick Diaz. He was the top of the world, and then you lose a couple of fights, and then like I knew guys that went down to Alliance MMA and trained with him. They're like, man, he walks into the gym, he comes by, he sits down, he pulls out his gym bag, he pulls out his gloves, he wraps his own hands, he does his left hand, he does his right hand, he looks around the gym. He pulls off his wraps. He puts them in his bag. He gets up and he leaves. He just didn't want to be there anymore. And then you saw from the performances, like, they look lethargic. Like, guys continuously are evolving. They're getting better. They're making progress. And I'm not saying Trezano is necessarily not going to show up at all and he's done and he needs to call it quits. And it's just like it's a confidence-based thing, man. Like, same reason a lot of fighters will see a sports psychologist. It's like, man, why are you seeing a sports psychologist? You're a badass. You're the toughest guy at the barbecue. You're the toughest guy that any of your friends and family know. You're the toughest guy going. Like, why do you have this self-doubt in yourself? Why does George St. Pierre throw up backstage before every fight? Well, he's the best of all time. He's going to go out there and win. It's like nerves, right? I don't know. Trezano, to me, appears like he just doesn't want to get hit. I know what you're saying with the volume. You're totally right. Seungwoo Choi is not fighting great guys, and he doesn't throw up great volume. But Trezano could be argued the same thing. Like, his last time out, he lands 35 significant strikes before he got knocked out by Almeida. Like, he wasn't letting his hands go. Prior to that, yeah, it looks okay, 70 against Hakeem, but like he got doubled up, right? Like there's no sense of urgency there. The fight before that with Ludovic Klein, it's the same thing. It's like 50, 60 significant strikes. So yeah, maybe it's a little more than Seungwoo Choi, but I don't know. And Choi having the 3-inch reach advantage, an inch in the height department. Like, listen, this is a stay away fight on any other card. On a nice card like this, where there's spots that you like, I don't know why you would want to force the hand and bet something, but Of course, you and I, we talk about every single fight. We have to make a pick on every single fight. You're taking Trezano, I'm taking Choi. One of us is going to be right, unfortunately,
and one
of us is going to be wrong. Yeah, but it just doesn't seem like it's the biggest priority for anybody this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we've won. Yeah, there's 14 fights on the card. We have 2 more to break down, but there's so many underdogs I like. That's like, yeah, Mike Trezano is not getting the juices flowing this week for me, buddy. frankly, the rest of the card is not exactly getting the juices flowing for me, but we got to break them down. We got Montel Jackson taking on Julio Arce. Jackson is a minus 200 favorite. Arce could be had for plus 170. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this was a tricky one to break down because like Montel Jackson at his best, like this guy is very physically strong. They keep mentioning the fact that he's got like one of the biggest hands in the not only in the division, but in like the UFC. And he's got a nasty grip strike. You see a lot of these guys that fight him, it's like they have very difficult time fighting off like his wrist control. And he's young. He jumped into the UFC with virtually not a whole lot of experience, not a whole lot of years of training. So he's learning on the job and like kudos to him. Like I like what I see out of Montel Jackson. He's got a difficult frame for the division as well. 5'10", 75-inch reach at 135. Fights as a southpaw. Very tricky, capable of picking up those wins. It's just that when you're beating JP Buys and Jesse Strader, Felipe Corrales, what can we really take away from that? Not a whole lot just yet. He dominates these lower level guys. He comes in as a massive favorite. He gets the job done. His last time out against JP Buys, he scored 4 knockdowns. Like everything he landed dropped buys. But overall, he only had 25 significant strikes landed, 4 takedowns in the mix. It didn't seem like he had a lot of versatility. He had the power, he had the ability to get the fight where he wanted. But everybody had that fight inside the distance. It should have been inside the distance multiple times over. And there was no real killer instinct to him. Prior to that, his fight with Jesse Strader, he does knock him out, but rest in peace, Aaron Carter. Jesse Strader is Aaron Carter's boxing coach. Like, I don't know why he's in the UFC, but hasn't had the results, so to speak. So it's very difficult to gauge how good Jackson is because you know how good he could be, but he hasn't really fought in those top 20, top 15 type guys. This is a huge test for him because Arce is exactly that. I think that Montel Jackson could win this fight by potentially getting the fight to the ground, grinding over Arce, doing his damn thing. But here's the worry there. Julio Arce is hard to take down, man. He's extremely quick-footed, fights off his back foot excellent. Big cage designed for this man because he's very dynamic, has excellent footwork, cuts great angles, and has nasty volume. And so the fact that he's rocking a 94% takedown defense, that's going to be extremely pivotal. He's fought some decent guys. Not necessarily all of them have tried to take him down, but for the most part, it's checked out for him. In his last fight with Daniel Santos, he just matadored him. Picture perfect game plan, dude. Moved off his back foot the entire time. Combinations, jab was landing, kicks were landing, composed, didn't make any mistakes. Lands 127 significant strikes over 15 minutes. Looked great. If Jackson can't take him down, he's going to do the same thing. Back up, move out, pick angles, sharpshoot, land shots, get back at range, do the damn thing. If Jackson can grab a hold of him and neutralize him, well, then it comes down to the judges. Because like if Jackson doesn't have huge ground and pound and huge submission attempts, he's just taking him down. They might be inclined to go with the superior volume from Arce. Again, Arce fighting basically at home. I mean, he's from New Jersey, right? He's going to have a lot of friends and family. They're going to be inclined to go with the guy that's landing the shots, stuffing the takedowns, and working. And so I do feel like Julio Arce has the goods to go out there and pull it off. And at plus 175, I'm willing to take a slight flyer on that. So I like Montel Jackson. Don't get me wrong. I really do. But this is he's jumping into the unknown. We don't know how good he could be unless he fights that litmus test fighter. Arce is that guy. So we'll know way more about him past Saturday. But we already know things about Arce. We know that he can move. We know that he's fought high level. We know that he's a former Golden Gloves boxer. We know that he can switch stance fight. We know that he can stuff takedowns. If he can do all that come Saturday night, I think he can spring the underdog upset. So sign me up for Arce plus 175.
I mean, the real path to victory for people against Montel Jackson so far have been being able to out-wrestle him. Like, he likes getting people to the ground, but it's like Ricky Simone and Brett Johns both were able to, take him down there and stay out of trouble while you're on the mat with them. I agree with a lot of the things that you're saying. Sorry, your final pick was Arce?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree, too. The only problem is, like, he's giving up 5 inches of reach. Like, Montel Jackson is enormous. So it's like you're probably eating shots to get into the pocket to land your own shots if you're Julio Arce. But, yeah, if he keeps this fight standing, it's going to look a lot closer to a pick'em or even Arce favorite. The big question mark becomes, can Jackson get him to the mat? And he's had some significant success against a lot of people, but some of his other opponents, like we're so used to having him as just a enormous favorite every single time he's been out there, because they've been giving him kind of cupcake matchups. Obviously, his submission skills are on point. Yeah, I'll lean ever so slightly towards Julio Arce with you, but another spot I'm not too confident in, and who knows where the line goes over the course of the week, because I imagine when they're standing next to each other, I wouldn't be shocked to see some action come in on Jackson, just based on the fact that he's going to be towering over him. And finally, we got Carlos Ulberg taking on Nikolai Nagu Moreno. Minus 120 Ulberg, plus 100 Nagu Moreno. Who you got, buddy?
I got Ulberg. I actually like the line too. Nick Mariano, listen, I mean, he's just been plodding his entire time out. He's young. He's training at Extreme Couture now. He's getting better, but he's extremely plodding. He's a guy that lost to Saberbek Safarov in his debut. Didn't look like he was going to augment to anything. He was known as a Romanian wrestler, and yet where is his takedowns at? But if there's one thing about him, it's what he showcased since he's come off his little hiatus and has actually won 4 fights in the UFC, if you can believe that, is like, he's durable and he's with it. Like, he'll keep coming forward. He'll let his hands go. His cardio is not great. His wrestling's not great. His striking defense is not great. But he can take one hell of a punch. And as a result, he's willing to mix it up and just kind of break you down. Guys that have lackluster cardio, he can take advantage of. In the Alexa Kamor fight, Kamor flat gassed out. That's what allowed Nick Mariano to get the win. But straight, I mean, he got outstruck 102-71. The thing is that those 102 significant strikes from Kamor came in the first round and a half. The 72 from Nick Mariano came in the second 7.5 minutes. The judges favor that second half. He gets the split decision. Ike Villanueva, very limited. Kenji Jikwu, there's a split decision. This is the second split decision now. Kenny outstrikes him 95-64. And yet, Nick Mariano gets the split decision again. How? How is this? 2 times now. He's getting outstruck. The numbers are clearly the other way. But he's likable. He's with it. He sticks in your face. He throws down. But I don't see any one glaring skill set of his that I think the opponent should really worry about. It's more so just he's hard to put away because he's a tough customer, continuously coming forward. He's going to grease out these split decisions. And his last time out against that Ihor Pereira or Poirier, I don't think anybody was big on that guy. Everyone was calling him a fraud, ballooned up record, shouldn't be in the UFC, going to get smoked. They hammered Nick Mariano, and he does win. But again, he's fighting a fraudulent type fighter, and he took him to the second round, TKO'd him in the second. I think he's serviceable. I think he's the kind of guy you throw on an undercard all day long, and fans in the arena will probably like his style. He's the kind of guy that's probably relatable, blue collar, have a beer with him afterwards. He's got that kind of workman-like style. But Carlos Ulberg, I think, is way more polished, way better kickboxing, and kind of not coming into his own, but getting a lot more comfortable. He's got the kickboxing pedigree. He was a male model down in New Zealand. He's Izzy's buddy. Where his actual skill lie. But you saw him, namely in that fight with Kenny and Jikwu, where the first round, he looks like $1 million. He's landing shots at will. He lands 146 significant strikes through a round and a half, and then just flat gasses out and loses. I think that was a great moment for him. That caused him to realize you can strike, you can hang in the UFC, but you need to change your approach a little bit, not go guns a-blazing, be smart. You're a good kickboxer. You're a long-rangey guy. It was a boring fight, but he looked completely comes forward, heavily muscled, and durable. And I thought Ulberg did an excellent job of finding a spot, knocking him out minute 15. You see that Ulberg is still young, still improving, but beyond anything else, getting more comfortable. He's seen the bright lights. He's competed. He's had more MMA camps. He's trained with guys at the highest level. He's figured out stuff, and I think that's going to be a big factor. Now, against Nick Mariano, if this is going to be a striking match, and Nick Mariano is usually down with that, Ulberg, I think, is just going to pick him apart. The one thing that is interesting is that Nick Mariano's blue-collar style of coming forward and causing you to work could yield dividends over a guy like Ulberg that if you put the pressure on him, he may have a tendency to kind of melt. For me, though, big cage, you're going to see that skill discrepancy in the kickboxing range. You're going to see the improvements that Ulberg's made to his footwork, and I think he's just going to stay to the outside and generally just pick and choose his spot. So I got Ulberg, and I'm also going to take Ulberg by decision.
Yeah, I mean, Nick has been incredibly, incredibly durable. You brought up the fact that some of these wins that he's got, they weren't really wins. The Kamor fight, very, very surprising decision there. And yeah, Ulberg, the biggest hole in his game was he just came out too hot. I'm sure on the regional scene, he was just knocking everybody out. 83 significant strikes landed on Kennedy and Jukwu in round 1, and then 63 in round 2, and then he fell off a cliff, basically. But he was still, even though he was tired at the end of round 1, he still had 63 significant strikes in him in round 2. It's but he set a pace that he couldn't keep, and we've seen improvements from him. Obviously, getting a couple takedowns against Fabio Charant, that's interesting. I'm with you on Ulberg, but and I haven't brought it up over the course of the program because I haven't really been able to dig into the numbers this week as I usually would on the prize pick side. Promo code DOP if you want to get a match up to $100 on your first deposit. But like Carlos Ulberg's significant strike total is only 46.5, which sure he may not have the same type of approach as he did against Kennedy, but like Nicky's very, very durable. The guy just takes an incredible amount of damage. 46.5 significant strikes is like he could clear that in a round, but you know, within 2 rounds, it's like I'd be pretty like if this fight goes to decision, like you think, and Ulberg wins a decision here, it's like I would be stunned if he doesn't get over 46.5. That was the first number that like really jumped out at me as I've been like looking at it. I haven't been able to dig into the numbers like I usually have leading up to a big card. It's 14 fights, so it was like there was more fights for me to research coming into for today. But like I like Ulberg as you like Ulberg, but yeah, that 46.5 significant strikes, I saw on like another site out there, they've already got it at like 65 or something like that. So that number is going to move. I got to figure out things to add to that Ulberg line because more than 46.5 significant strikes for Carlos Ulberg seems very, very good. As long as Nicky's chin holds up, and we know Nick's chin holds up. Only bet I have in right now is Zhang Weili inside the distance -110. I was able to scoop that up. I'm considering Ulberg as a bet. Turman as an underdog play. Molly McCann. We'll see. I don't really want to jump on that train, to be perfectly honest. You got me thinking about Frankie Edgar. Michael Chandler will probably get my money when all is said and done at the end of the week. Alex Pereira. And yeah, I'm very undecided this week. I don't want to go spamming underdogs like I did last week, and then, you know, they don't come through. The books had them right all along, and I got egg on my face. So I got to fine-tune my plays a little bit more than I did last week. Hit them with the PRP, kid.
Yeah, 14 fights, and as it's looking right now, I think I'm gonna go with 7 underdogs. So half the card being dogs. The one I could switch, we'll get to it. But yeah, funnily enough, we're gonna go Pereira dog, Zhang Weili favorite, Dustin Poirier favorite, Frankie Edgar dog, Dan Hooker favorite, Brad Riddell dog. I think I'm gonna go with Ryan Spann. I can see myself going Ryan Spann. It was the underdog. Erin Blanchfield, favorite. Wellington Turman, underdog. Ottman Azaitar, favorite. Savannah Gomez-Duarez, underdog. Seungwoo Choi, favorite. Julio Arce, underdog. Carlos Ulberg, favorite. I need like favorite dog. Couple favorite favorites. No dogs. But yeah, Spann's the one. I don't know. You've talked some sense into me as well. Like you're chasing a dog more than anything. Is he good? No. Could he win? Sure, but that's MMA. Anybody can win. And if someone's going to blow out their knee randomly or dislocate their collarbone or whatever the case may be, sure enough, I'll have them because like my run of getting the injured fighter out of my plays is just ungodly. But all the same, you don't go to bet all 14 fights. In fact, most books won't even allow you to parlay that many anyway. So pick and choose what you like. I think that there's some good solid favorites and there's some good solid underdogs if you want to be like Paul and just pick and choose a couple of solid dogs with some solid money. If you took 2 or 3 dogs, one of them comes through at one of these. You need 2 of them to come through, but plus 185s, plus 160s, plus 170s. Like it's not like you're getting a plus 120, plus 130. There's some decent enough dogs. And of course you can chase a couple props as well. So yeah, I'm excited to try to get at this one and just hoping like the run of not just like bad luck and bad picks. It's like the like mysterious clout of like my main event guy just gets hurt or freak injury or like I get Marina Rodriguez could lose the fight, sure, but just like melted, bro. Not melted, like it was maybe
Lemos is always going to be dangerous like that, though.
Yeah, I know. Just you think, oh, geez, Marina's never been knocked. I don't know.
I was just on the under, and that worked out.
It just doesn't mean
that's one of the only things that worked out for me.
I had the over 2.5, but it didn't pay very good, and it's like it barely squeaked by. Then everything else I had on it. Not so good, but again, listen, we do a show every week. We have to make full picks on every card, so there's going to be some bad picks along the way for sure. But when you do feel like you got a good line, when you either you got a good feeling about it, you've done your research, you're confident, you get that gut feeling, or your buddy's James Krause and he tells you his guy's about to take a dive. If you've got an inside scoop, if it's like one or the other,
who's got the inside scoops? We need the inside scoops. If you knew about Minner being injured before that line moved like 15% in win probability, hit me up. I want the scoops. Give me those inside scoops. I'm not anywhere close to the inside, Cody. We need to be on the inside on these things. I'm only half kidding.
What gets me is that you'll see it all the time where the guy's like, I tore my meniscus a week ago and I got an elbow infection and I got a fever of 103 and I haven't trained in 2 weeks. And it's like, they just won the fight. This is their post-fight interview. And it's like, no, exactly. Holy shit, dude. So imagine someone called you and was like, Paul, this guy tore his meniscus. He's got an elbow infection. He hasn't slept in 2 weeks. It's like all good advice. Of course, the game that we're playing is called MMA. And bro, they don't give a shit about that stuff. It's punchy kicky. Expect the unexpected. So all we can do is roll with the punches, the same as the fighters, and hopefully come out on the side on the winning end for a change.
Yeah, it's like when Frankie Murder took on Cyril Gane. And, night of the fights, I had Frankie Murder money line because the difference between him and inside the distance was so negligible. I was just like, what if this did go 5 rounds? I'm not expecting it to go 5 rounds. But then all of that information about, he's got an absolutely injured knee. And then he walks out in knee wraps. And then Frankie Murderov became a thing where he just wrestled his way to victory over the course of 5 rounds. So it's just like, yeah, that injury news, it's probably good to be on the side of the non-injured fighter, but you don't even know that the other non-injured fighter may actually be injured as well. All these guys are probably injured. The toll that a 6-week, 8-week camp puts on the body. I'm sure everyone's got some, nicks and scratches and all of that type of stuff. So sometimes it's better not to know. But if you got the goods, hit me up at Paul Shag on Twitter, at CJ Saftic on Twitter. That is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For Cody and Megan, I'm Paul, saying goodbye and good luck.